Welcome back to the Pivot Point podcast, where me and my guests explore the pivotal moments that shape our lives. I'm your host, Jessica McGann. And speaking of change, Happy New Year's, everyone. I hope you had a restful and restorative holiday with your loved ones and that you are stepping into 2024 revitalized and ready to achieve all of those big goals and dreams that you have for yourself. In today's episode, I speak with award-winning coach and counselor, Ellen Patricia. Now, it is no surprise that Ellen has been recognized for her work because Ellen has always been an extremely hard worker, like working all day, every day, first in, last to leave level of dedication that spans years and years of her life until her son was born. Born with a congenital disease that she understood very little, if anything, about. Now, she would continue to work herself to the bone to be the best employee and the best mom until one fateful morning, her son asked her a question so pivotal that it would lead her to quit her job, go back to school, and completely change her and her family's life for the better. Today, Ellen is an award-winning coach and counselor who has been leading a social enterprise for over a decade. In 2020, she was recognized as one of the women superachievers at the 7th World Women Leadership Congress. She intimately understands the challenges faced by high-performing women who want to be a powerful channel for the good of others, and also for themselves. Ellen shares her journey of learning the difference between unhealthy success and healthy success, how life might be hard, but we are fully capable of taking on and achieving hard things. Ellen has an inspiring story for you today. So without further ado, let's dive in. Thank you, Ellen, for joining me here on the Pivot Point today.
Thank you so much for having me, Jess. Really appreciate it and allowing me to just share my story.
Yeah. And with it, like with your story, you also bring your expertise as you have a master's in counseling. I think you'll bring a lot of insight into your experience as well that I think a lot of our listeners will be able to reap a lot of value from. So maybe you could start us off by painting a picture of what your life was like before your pivotal moment. How were you experiencing day-to-day life?
Okay, so I am actually, as a person, a go-getter, and I usually don't mind putting in extra effort when I do something just to make it successful. I still am. It's just that I think nowadays, this version of Ellen is actually healthier in a sense that the previous version of Ellen, she valued productivity and she valued efficiency more than she valued herself. And this dysfunctional, well, for me, it was dysfunctional. This dysfunctional value showed, and it was reflected in different parts of my life. So prior to that pivotal time, I still recall a few years before my son was born, I was invited and I received a full scholarship from the Singapore, NUS, the National University of Singapore, which is one of the highest rating university in Asia. And
congratulations.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I accepted the scholarship and I worked hard. I graduated with the best possible result for a master's thesis at that time. But at the cost wherein I often slept at the graduate room and often also alone because I really want to achieve that result, which I did, but at that cost. And after I graduated, I was offered by the Singapore government the status of permanent residence, which I took. And I worked at one of the biggest government-owned company in Singapore at that time. With that kind of work ethics, I still also often worked quite late. And that was the pattern sort of at that point of time. And I worked there for about 2 years. And I came back to my country and I worked in one of the biggest property developer in the country with the same work ethics and the same strong desire to succeed. And I recall during my working days, it is not seldom that I came to the office earlier than the securities, and I went home later than the securities. So that was the kind of life that I was leading at the time.
That sounds completely all-consuming. Like you slept there. Where did you, if you could reflect, do you think you know where you got your work ethic from? This desire to just really push for greatness in the workplace?
Yeah, I think I got it from my parents, because actually I'm Indonesian, but I got some Chinese descendants. And it was my grandfather and like my grandmother generation. So my parents were born in the country. But being migrants, they have to work really, really, really hard to be able to survive. And it was sort of passed on from generation to generation. I recall my dad also often come back home like in the wee hour of the day. And my mom often wake up late also at home. So I guess subconsciously I adopted the lifestyle.
It sounds like that was your normal. That's just what you observed, and that's what you took on as what you needed to do in the workplace.
Yeah.
Do you remember if you were happy?
I guess there were happy moments, but sort of like fleeting, like whenever I got promotion, whenever I got praises from my boss, definitely I felt happy, but it was not long lasting. Then after that, I already on to the next thing. So I guess I would say it was sort of like living in an illusion.
Like, did you even realize that anything was maybe, because I know that your pivotal moment will take us into stepping away from such high stress, high work environments. But like when you were in it, did you feel like anything was wrong? Did you feel like satisfied in life?
Okay, so at that time, I don't felt that, and I don't think that, or rather, I didn't think that there was anything wrong about it, because I guess that's sort of like the norm in my life. And I guess there are some moments when I felt satisfied. Again, there was moment when I achieved like accomplishment because I received recognition, one of the best employee, things like that.
Okay.
But again, it is not long lasting. Probably it lasts for 2 to 3 days, and then after that, it is gone, and I on to the next thing again, pursuing the next thing.
Pursuing that next raise, that next promotion, that next recognition. I see. So how did you meet your partner?
Actually, we met during my school days. So when I was in Singapore, we actually had a long distance relationship, which is quite rough, I would say. But thankfully, things worked out.
And is he as hard a worker as you are? Does he have the same kind of career ambitions, at least at that time, as you did?
I would say he was the healthier one, which at that time, I did not realize that. And that sort of like often creates some conflict within me. But on hindsight, I am thankful that he was actually the healthier one.
So then you get married and have a baby.
Yes. Yes.
Tell me about the day your son was born.
So at that time, my pregnancy was actually quite smooth. Like I only experienced one morning sickness at that time during my pregnancy throughout. So I was working as per normal, and approaching the labor day, of course, I felt excited. I felt, excited because I'm going to meet my baby for the first time. But then I recall in one of my visits in the last trimester, my obgyn told me that my baby's head was quite big and it was risky for me to go through labor with normal procedure. And I was advised to take the C-section procedure to deliver my baby. So at that time, I think it was the first time ever in my pregnancy, I was nervous and anxious about delivering my baby. because I didn't know what to expect, what would happen. I had concern about the anesthesia, the surgery, the pain after the surgery, and whatever the unknown aspect about the surgery. So because I was anesthetized, I only met my baby a few hours after I woke up and gained consciousness.
So they put you fully to sleep. Like they didn't
Yes.
just numb half of your body. They put you fully to sleep.
Yes.
Okay. So you didn't even meet your baby until hours after he arrived.
Yeah. So my husband, my parents, and my parents-in-law, they were the one who welcomed my baby in the world.
Oh, and what was it like to meet him for the first time yourself? How did you feel waking up out of that?
So at that time, actually, my baby was put in another room because he had some yellow jaundice. He had jaundice at that time. So he was brought to my room, I think a few hours after I was told that everything was okay, in the sense that he was safe. It's just that he had jaundice and he had to be kept in different room. And at that time, before I met him, I was told by my family that he had congenital condition, which I sort of I guess, shocked me at that time because I was not prepared for that. I was prepared for, I guess, like any other parents, normal baby. And I did not know how should I respond? What should I do? Sort of like everything that I was preparing for was not applicable anymore.
And for those listening who maybe aren't familiar with what a congenital disease is, could you just tell us what that means?
Yeah, so basically it's a medical condition that refers to there's something not normal. Normal means like most people function biologically. And in my son's condition, it was his urethra system. So his urethra system is not functioning as most people. Because of his condition, he had to go through 7 operations from babyhood until childhood. The last one was when he was 10 years old.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like, anytime we have a baby, we want nothing more than for that baby to be healthy, to be safe and healthy and be able to raise them and care for them. That must have been really hard to hear at that time. Do you remember what it felt like to learn that?
Yeah, like I said, I was shocked. I was like, so what should I do? Like I said, initially I was excited. I was anticipating meeting him. And now I was like, so now what should I do when I met him? What should I think? What should I do in preparation? Like all those questions sort of like populate my mind. And it's sort of, I guess, make the joy and the excitement sort of go sideways and are being replaced by fears, by anxiety, like how would I live my life with this condition? How would we live our life with this condition?
So how did you do it? What did your life look like in the first year, 2 years of his life?
Well, one of the things that I would say I'm most grateful for is being in this age, like in this modern age.
Oh, okay.
Because this technology of internet, whereby information is so easily accessible, has been so helpful for me. Because books, I cannot find a lot of books on the condition, but there are journals that I can access, and some information here and there, and information about people experiences. So that was very, very helpful. I think in the first month, it sort of made me feel, okay, so I'm not really alone. Like there are people experiencing, even though I don't know them, but I can read their story, even though just snippets of them. And at least I felt that I can equip myself better in terms of knowledge. I'm not like empty at all. And I learned to build up my knowledge at that time. So I'm so thankful for the technology. So that was like during my 3 months maternity leave, like I'm on the internet like every day, just trying to collect information that I can apply and I think can be experimented with this condition.
Do you have a lot of family or community support around this time?
Oh, my mom was with me at that time.
Mhm.
I'm staying with my parents, so at that time I'm also very thankful for the support, because I don't think
Yeah.
handling that and the stress and all the sudden situation and condition, it would be much, much harder without the support of my parents.
Totally. I mean, I think community is important. Even with a healthy baby, it's a hard transition to step into. I don't have kids, but I'm seeing my friends go into that, and it is a different world stepping into their houses these days. 3 months is a very short maternity leave for new moms, let alone you with a baby that had medical conditions that you were just trying to figure out. How did it feel to return to the workplace during that time?
I guess I got mixed feelings, because
Mhm.
on one side, I still want to be with my son. Like, I felt that I'm not prepared enough, and I still want some time to know him better, to
Yeah.
understand what he needs from me. But on the other hand, I also know I need to secure funds, because from the doctor we know he may need multiple surgeries, and that costs a lot. So
Mhm.
on one hand, I'm also thankful that I got this job that allows me to just collect and secure funds for his multiple surgeries. So I was sort of like got mixed feelings at that time.
What we heard from you at the beginning of this interview was that work took a lot of your time and energy and focus. You were first one in, last one out. Did that change once you had your son?
Um, no.
So you still tried to be the very best employee while at the same time trying to be the very best mother.
Yes, yes. And that was, I would say, even even more unhealthy than the previous time, because I'm stretching myself even thinner. And I I wasn't realizing that at that time I was putting myself on prolonged excessive stress. It was until I recall my son at that time was in kindergarten. So at that time, it was a weekend, and suddenly, just out of a sudden, I felt severe abdominal pain. I could not stand, I could not even sit. Like, I could only lie down. Even lying down, I still felt the pain. So my husband took me to the hospital. They brought me to the emergency room, and I went through different sorts of examinations. But I was not long in the hospital, because the doctor could not find anything wrong with me medically. So I was
Mm.
discharged. They only gave me painkillers, and the doctor told me that I need to learn to manage my stress better, because it seems the cause of the pain is actually stress.
Mm.
So that was the first prompt that I got, that led me to think and evaluate the way I live my life. And I
Yeah.
think that sort of created in me that desire to have a change, because I recall I told myself, I don't want to have this kind of pain ever again, because it was so painful.
I don't think a lot of people realize too that our emotional well-being is actually deeply connected to our gut. Like our gut health is such an indicator of how we are managing our emotions and stress specifically. Like stress can really affect us mentally and physically. Like we could get diseases from prolonged stress. So what did you do in that moment? You've just gotten this aha moment of, oh my goodness, my stress is now causing me physical pain. What did you feel called to change? Or were you still kind of evaluating and observing and kind of in that contemplative state?
I think at that time it was, I would say, the turning point.
Yeah.
But I think what made me not progressing as much as I would like to, because I didn't know what to do. I mean, I had the desire to shift my life,
Mhm.
but I don't exactly know how to, because the way I lived my life at that time was coming from the belief and the values that I have adopted since childhood. And
Mhm.
it was like decades I have been living with that kind of belief and values. And just dismantling that belief is a hard work and intention. It took intentional, consistent actions and practices, which I was not aware of how to do at that time.
Mhm.
So I only had desire at that time, but I don't know the way. And I guess at that time, my work also not really allowing me the time to try and experiment with things and to figure out things. But luckily, I guess the universe would not let me go. So luckily, at that time, my son was also still in kindergarten. So I recall there's one day he asked me this question: Mom, why do you think am I born? Why do you think am I being born this way? He asked it quite lightly, actually, but when I heard that question, it just broke my heart.
Mm. What landed for you when he asked you that question?
It's sort of like what went through my mind is he regretting being born in this world?
Mm.
And it's really like, I guess it really woke me up. It woke me up even harder than the first prompt.
What did it
Because
wake you? Yeah. What did it wake you up to?
like, this is not the way to live. Like, I had been paying attention to his surgeries, to his physical condition, but I was neglecting his emotional side. I was neglecting his mental side. I was not paying attention to how he perceived his life and how he perceived being in this life. And I don't want ever for my son to regret being born. I want him to feel proud of himself. I want him to just anticipate living.
Mm-hmm. I'm hearing these two really pivotal moments really come into play here for you. The first one, your sickness and knowing that the stress, but that lifestyle being so connected to a core belief that you had of that's how you live, that's how you succeed, that's how I get my value in this world. And then your son reaching out for that emotional connection with you and kind of telling you in his own way how he's feeling in life, and you going, I do not want him to see life like this. Like something really has to change.
Yes, yes. I think looking back, those two moments were the foundational ones that led me to really decide that whatever it takes, I'm going to change the life that we live so that both my son and myself can live a better way. And we hopefully the long years ahead of us could be lived in a more joyful way, in a more fulfilling way.
So what did you feel called to do? What did you do next?
So at that time, like I said, I actually did not know what to do. So
It takes a while, right? Like you can have that massive download, you can have that aha moment, but it's one thing to know what you don't want. It's another thing to figure out what you do, right?
yes, yes, exactly. So I think that pivotal moment, the second one especially, really got me to explore my options. Like, what are my options? So thankfully, at that time, my monthly salary was no longer crucial for our family sustainability, even after we calculated in his upcoming surgeries. So after some long thoughts and some discussion with my husband, I decided to resign from my job, and I pursued another master's degree in counseling, which I thought going to equip me better at least I would know how people change, how people like go out from certain situation that uncomfortable, distressing. So basically, that's what my thought at that time.
So you viewed, so you decided to make a whole career change and into a career where you could excel and gain skills that would help your son live and thrive in this world. Is that what I'm hearing correctly?
Yeah, so I was deciding to enter a world of knowledge at that time, because at that time I did not know yet whether I would like to be a counselor or what would I do after the graduation of my master's degree. But I only know that this is the first step if I want to equip myself on how to tend better to the social and emotional and mental needs of my son and myself.
Yeah, it sounds like there was a change from your life being career focused to now your life being family focused. Your values had completely shifted.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I guess it has been shifting slowly, but that's sort of like the final punch.
Yeah. And how did like your family and friends feel when you told them that you were making such a drastic change in your life? Did you feel supported, or did you receive like, are you crazy?
Well, a mixture of both, actually. My husband was the most supportive one. I'm just so thankful that he's always by my side all these years. He's one of my greatest blessing, actually.
What's his name?
So his name is Echo.
Echo? That is such a cool name too. Echo. We're a big fan over here on Pivot Point of View.
Yes, he's a great, great man. So he was my supporter all along. My parents, they were concerned about my decision because at that time, counseling is not a good option for career, for income. And they didn't know that, and I didn't tell them actually, that I am making that shift for knowledge. I think if they had known, they would be even more concerned. So, but thankfully, they still supported my decision. So I really appreciate that. My colleagues, on the other hand, are the ones like, are you crazy? Because at that time, I was like at the top of my career. And now I am leaving that position to pursue a master's degree in a foreign field that had little potential for income. Like it doesn't really make sense for them. But I guess at that time I was like, yeah, it doesn't have to make sense for anyone else except for me and my family.
Yeah. And that could be such a hard transition for people. Like when you work and you dedicate your life to one thing and you associate yourself with that title, I am this job. And then to step into something completely different, it can feel almost like a loss of identity too, of like, who am I now that I'm no longer this position, this job title? What kind of support or tools did you lean on during this time of transformation that helped you stay mentally and emotionally focused on pursuing this new path?
I guess it's really still my old pattern and value, but it's just shifted. So that is one of the first thing that I discovered, that having a master degree in counseling actually does not really change my value. Surprisingly, I still have that value, and that sort of like propelled me because like, okay, no matter what people say, I'm going to succeed in this new field. So that's sort of what sustained me in that transition moment of 2 years of taking my master degree.
Your hustle, your desire to be great. Like you do not, it sounds like Ellen does not do things half-assed. Like Ellen goes for it. When you put your mind to something, you're going to give it 120,000%.
Yes, exactly. So in that sense, that was helpful because at that time, I did not have any support other from my husband. Like I still don't know. I have knowledge, increasingly greater knowledge about how people maintain their well-being, mental care, emotional care, but knowledge and embodied experience, I learned from experience now that it's actually two different things. It's not always goes hand in hand. So surprisingly, after I graduated from my master's degree in counseling, I have better knowledge, but not much lifestyle change.
Can you explain to our listeners a little bit more about the difference between a cognitive experience and an embodied one, and how important it is when we're changing or healing to consider both?
Yes, definitely. So my master's degree in counseling actually equipped me with knowledge that helpful to know about how people usually like tend to themselves mentally, emotionally, socially. So I know those things. But that cognitive experience, that knowing, I discovered does not automatically create a transformation in life.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back, I think I would say the thing that creates transformation is really taking action upon the knowledge. The knowledge itself does not create transformation, but taking action, consistent, intentional action upon the knowledge, that is the thing that creates transformation.
Did you do any counseling or therapy at this time as a means of support, or were you getting that through school?
For this current time, I already made it a habit. Like I think for years, I always have a coach. Like I meet with my coach usually monthly. At certain times, it can be bi-weekly, it can be weekly, as and when I need it more often. And there are periods in my life where I also engage therapists to work with me, especially during the pandemic. At that time, I work with my therapist like bi-weekly until the pandemic start to end. So yes, I do engage professionals to help me and support me because I think that's super helpful.
Yeah, you understand the value of having that time and that perspective to sit and work through whatever's happening for you in that moment. What were some of, if any, roadblocks and hurdles that you had to overcome in order to stay consistently down this path?
I think one of the biggest hurdle is really making that shift from believing that success was synonym to constant hustle to success could actually coexist with well-being. And when I came from that belief that success was synonym with constant hustle, I somehow cannot escape that prolonged excessive stress, because that's sort of like the byproduct of the constant hustle. And it took me years, really like years, working on myself. Like I said, acting upon the knowledge that I got, working on myself with the support of my life coach, with the support of my therapist, to really make that shift from embodying that unhealthy success into embodying a healthier one with elevated quality self-care in different parts and different areas of my life. Mm-hmm. So that is something that I would say one of the biggest roadblocks. And it really took me constant intentional actions, practices, and process to dismantle that old belief that had guided me for so long. Because for a significant part of my life, it has been my belief. And replacing it with a new paradigm that success could exist with well-being, it's something I would honestly say requires struggles, or rather involves struggle.
Yeah. Changing a core belief can be really difficult. Like that's how we know to exist in this world, and questioning whether or not it's serving us any longer, or whether or not it's true. Like asking the question, is this true? It's a practice and it takes time. How has your life changed for the better from that pivotal moment? of making a change?
Oh, I think my life has been much better because I think prior to that, I would say, I wouldn't say like there is a dot whereby I could say, okay, now I have changed. But it's more like I'm walking in a spectrum, like I am continuously evolving.
Yeah.
But I would say this version of Ellen, compared to the old version of Ellen, I think this version of Ellen is much happier and enjoy life more, because that version of Ellen is filled with self-guilt and self-judgment. I still recall, like, whenever I'm starting to pay attention more to myself, like I would be filled with this guilt. Should I be doing this? Like, this is felt so wrong. Like, Ellen, are you being lazy? Like, all those thoughts are coming to my mind. And it really took me work, like literally work, to convince myself that prioritizing my well-being is actually good. It's not being lazy, but it's being essential for my health.
We got to keep filling our own cup if we're going to keep giving to others and keep giving to the world. What do you hope the listeners take away from your story today?
I think there are a few things I would say. One is, I hope my story can inspire whoever that's listening that adapting to unexpected challenges, like the experience that I had with my son when I first know about his condition, when we first realized that whatever that we have prepared is actually no longer applicable, that all the plans have to be changed. That is something that requires resilience, but very doable. And I hope it inspires whoever that's listening that adapting to unexpected challenges, even if when they seem so insurmountable, it can be done, to have really that belief in them. And along that, I would also hope the story would inspire whoever that's listening to evaluate the way they live and to see if they are actually having a balanced commitment between whatever the dream, professional dream that they're pursuing with the well-being that they are experiencing. And I hope this short conversation can shed some lights on the importance of recognizing the toll that it would brought on us if we had prolonged excessive stress, that we can really impair our well-being. And I hope it will prompt the listeners to just reflect on their life and see, how am I doing with my self-care? Am I making myself or filling myself with healthy stuff? And hopefully choose joy and hopefully prioritize joy. And prioritizing joy, like I said, it can take a process. For me, it takes years, like literally years. But again, it's doable.
We can do hard things. And you hit on something that I'm really passionate about. Like stress and stress management is like something that I'm really, really passionate about, especially working in film and television. I really focus on helping those in those creative industries manage their stress, because as you shared, it is so damaging to our health and our well-being in this world. And it doesn't have to be that way. There are ways for you to be successful and live an extraordinary life and have a balance and have your stress under control. And I really appreciate your story, because as I even end this conversation, it has left me with this sense of bravery and making bold, brave choices and going for what you want and working hard for what you want. And that's exactly what I created this podcast for, was to share stories of people that will inspire the listeners, you guys, to make big, bold, brave choices in your own life. And Ellen, I feel like that's exactly what you've given us today, is this confidence to be bold in our own life and believe that there is another way to do things. And as Glennon Doyle likes to say, we can do hard things. And you have definitely done hard things. Thank you so
Yes,
much for joining me in this conversation today, Ellen. I really appreciate it.
my pleasure indeed, Jess. Thank you for having me and allowing me to just channel this experience.
If anyone listening wants to connect with you, learn more about you, or work with you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Well, they can reach out to me through my socials. I hang out on Instagram. My ID is ellenpatricia.world, or they can reach out also through my LinkedIn, Ellen Patricia, or in Facebook, Ellen Patricia. So those are some of the ways that they can reach out to me.
Perfect. I will make sure that those are in the episode description, you guys. So if you are looking to connect with Ellen, you just have to go to the episode description and click a link and you'll be connected with her. Thank you again, Ellen. I wish you all the best on your journey.
Thanks, Jess. I wish you all the best too.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider liking, subscribing, and letting us know your thoughts in the comments below. It truly means the world to me to hear from you. New episodes will be available every Saturday, both on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. And if you would like to learn more about my work as a coach, today's guest, or have a story that you would like to share on the Pivot Point, check out the episode description for more information. Now, time for the legal stuff. This podcast is presented to you solely for educational and entertainment purposes. I may be a professionally certified coach myself, but hosting a podcast is not coaching. This podcast should not be used in substitution of working with a licensed therapist, doctor, coach, or other qualified professionals. Copy that? Amazing. See you on the next episode. Nothing but love, Jess.